Oh, yeah. Welcome in, everybody, to Cream of the Crop, a fantasy hockey podcast. I am your host, Blake Creamer. Please give me a follow over on Twitter/X. It's at Blake Creamer AG. That's where I bring the tweet heat. You know this, all right? And before we get into today's episode, I do need to talk to you about the Apples and Ginos fantasy hockey draft guide that we've created. We released it on September 1st, and it's a beautiful document, 141 beautiful pages of team reviews, sleepers, busts, ADP values, betting articles, all that stuff. We've done a lot of work this offseason. Basically, that's what I did with my entire offseason here, and it feels good. But it's available for a standalone purchase on the Apples and Ginos Patreon. So get your biscuits over there and grab that document if you like winning. All right. But that's not why you're here. Joining me today for a battle of epic proportions, a true legend in this fantasy hockey game, Elan Dubrofsky of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Elon, thanks for making some time for us today. How you doing?
Yeah, doing great. Thanks for having me on, Blake. This is exciting. My first Apples and Ginos appearance. You know, I don't really get invited to podcasts. I don't know why. Like, if you have a podcast, I'll come. I'm free. Let's do it. I like talking hockey.
You're damn skippy, buddy. This is an open invitation. All right. Why don't you just let's just meld the brands together. Are you with me on this? I mean, we could noodle on this later.
How about talk to my wife? Let's see if she's okay with me doubling the commitment, and then as long as you get her okay, then we'll do it.
Oh God, that's a real thing, isn't it? Like during fantasy season, I don't know. Like, do you have all your Twitter notifications on, Elon? So your phone's kind of just going off all the time. Is that sort of your process in season?
All right, this is how I do it. I've got definitely notifications turned on for every single goal that gets scored. I use the Goals NHL Twitter account that I just turned on, but I have my phone on silent and I have my watch usually also silent. So it's just like, every 10 seconds, I'm like checking my watch to see if there's been an update, but I'm not actually getting the buzz. So it's just always there for me to check the latest notifications.
Oh man, I feel for our spouses, man. This is, it's a problem. Like, yeah, my Twitter is just popping off at all times. I basically had to, we had to have a conversation like, okay, during this time to this time, like I'm going to be looking at my phone and that seems to work. But yeah, I get a lot of dead-eyed stares, just a lot of passive aggressiveness. I don't even know where I'm going with this. My wife's not here to defend herself, but
I appreciate the leeway she gives me for the silliness.
They're amazing women. Let's agree on that. All right. But we got to do a battle here, buddy. But before we do that, I mean, when you got Elan Dubrofsky on your podcast, you got to talk about the Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy Hockey League. Holy moly. Nate and I reference it all the time. It's a scoring system in Kouple that we use for our listener leagues and things of that nature. Like, you've just got it dialed in. And in my opinion, Kouple is the best league out there. So just on that, Elon, I'd love to get your thought. Like, how did that come about, first of all? And then did you expect Kouple to become as big as it is currently?
Like, definitely not at the start. We're going into season 10 now, so it's been a long road. I still remember season 1. So 10 years ago now, we were on ESPN. We filled 7 leagues, so that was pretty good.
Yep.
And we just said, like, everyone who comes in top 2 in their league, you're going to be tier 1 next year. Everyone who comes, 3, 4, you're tier 2. And we started that way, and then we started doing some promotion relegation year in, year out. Every year we get a few more people. Yeah, now we're up to around 700. We're approaching 700 people signing up for this year. So it's like, I don't know. I can't do the math. Divide that by 14. That's how many leagues it's going to be. But yeah, it's a blast. It's a ton of work. Big kudos right now to Kevin and John, who have been helping Brian and I put it all together. And when I say helping, I mean doing like most of it at this point. But yeah, we're starting drafts on Monday. We just revealed the draft order yesterday. Blake got himself a gem of a pick. I got an okay pick. And Nate, I should mention, is going to be in tier 1 this year. So he's really representing your pot. If you get an Apples and Ginos ultimate Kouple champion, I don't know. I feel like at that point we just fold the pod and then everyone just needs to listen to you all the time.
Yeah, well, I don't think we'll do that, buddy. But that'd be a nice little feather in the cap. I know Nate is preparing pretty hard for that. Like, it's there's a lot of prestige. It honestly is. It's like, we're talking about fantasy hockey. This is niche, but that's why I love talking to you and people like you, because I take this very seriously.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
The year that a couple years ago I won, not to brag, but I will, because I earned it, because I won the tier 1 ultimate championship. And it was like the best feeling I've ever had that whole summer. Like, anytime I met anyone, I was like, "Hey, I'm Elon. I'm the Kouple ultimate champ. How you doing?"
I love that.
And it's like, this is a daycare interview. I don't know why you need to tell me that, but yeah, it was great. Let's not talk about what's happened in the 2 years since.
That's fine. You
But
know what? Even I'll segue out of that. I've played Kouple. This will be my third year, and I didn't make the playoffs in my first 2 years. And that said, I was second or first in points, at the end of the year.
so you just had bad schedule luck.
Well, schedule luck and bad beats. I've taken so many bad beats in that league. It's
Mm-hmm.
insane. I've drafted well. I make trades. So I've really got, I'm putting a lot of effort into Kouple this year. First off, I got to make the playoffs for the love of God. I've made some mistakes here and there with my streaming, so I'm kind of shoring that up. But I don't know. Do you have any tips for people that are maybe just starting out in Kouple? Because, obviously without giving away your premium strategies.
No, for sure. I mean, we give it all away on the podcast, of course. Listen to Keeping Karlsson. Brian and I aren't hiding anything. Okay, I guess it depends how basic and new you are to fantasy in general. Definitely in our league specifically. First of all, obviously, I mean, how basic do you want to go? Know your league settings. Don't just pick Quinn Hughes as the top D because you think he'll get the most points. You got to know that shots are worth a certain amount and blocks are worth a certain amount. So you got to obviously understand. I assume most of your listeners know to do those basic things. But then getting to a level of giving advice to Blake. Look, you have your 4 ads per week. I don't know how much you're focusing on the schedule, but that could make a big difference, right? Picking up an off day guy who's going to get you 3 games and dropping a player who you're going to have on your bench a couple days anyways. So you're only getting 1 game out of. That's key. I think volume is kind of key. Obviously you need the quality, but you also want some quantity. And I think that's actually a thing I'm going to change in my strategy a little bit. I feel like last year I was streaming always trying to go for the quantity, but at the same time thinking to myself, if I'm picking between 2 guys and one has an extra game, but one has a chance to stick on my roster, let me get the guy that I think might turn out to be a guy who sticks on my roster because I'm always going for that upside. But I feel that ended up handcuffing me a lot because I'd often be in situations where I just love everyone on my roster. And now I don't want to, I added Fabian Zetterlund out of free agency, and then he just went off for points in his last 3 games. I can't drop him, even though now San Jose has a bad schedule the following week. And so it's I should just be more of a killer and just I thank you for your service. You're gone. I got to win the next week because, at the end of the day, if you don't make the playoffs, it doesn't matter. You're losing matchups. Great. You have Fabian Zetterlund on your lineup doing well, playing in the consolation playoffs, which, by the way, I won the consolation playoffs, by the way.
Yeah, so did I. Yeah, there we
so
go.
There you
All
go.
Right. Yeah, that feels nice. I like that, actually. That's a really good point because streaming was my weakness in Kouple last year. I've talked with Nate about this too. Just something I'm going to be altering this year. On the Monday, I would sometimes pick up 3 guys, all schedule based. So looking for off nights, trying to maximize those games played and really smash on that. But that was handcuffing me as well. I was by the time Friday comes around, one move. And I'm well, I don't have any options. If anybody gets injured, so one of the things I'm going to be doing this year is maximum 2, 2 picks on a Monday max. That's going to be a little bit different than what I've done. I felt like I was smashing early on in my matchups, and then I was kind of falling by the weekend, right? I'd go into the weekend leading, and then I'd lose the matchup. So
I think that's definitely a good takeaway. And another reason you want to save those ads is, let's say by Friday it's not close. You're either up by a lot or you're down by a lot. It's nice to have those moves available to then make moves to help you with the following matchup instead of always maybe you just wasted. You added a bunch of guys that play Sunday. Turns out you didn't need them. You were going to win anyways. You just kind of wasted those ads.
Yep. No, that was, I was having some problems there. So this year it's going to be different, buddy. I'm in tier 5. I'm excited. I've actually got Victor Nuno in my tier there and in my league. So I'm excited because Victor's a friend of the show as well. Really sharp fantasy mind, along with everybody that's doing Kouple, really. But
I wouldn't worry about Victor. He'll pick all the he knows all the prospects. He'll pick the guy who's going to win the Calder. He'll get Michkov. But
does he do that in redraft leagues too? Yeah, just all rookies, amazing prospects. That team's going to be good in 5 years, Victor. I don't know. Anyway, shout out to Victor Nuno. Yeah, me too. All right, man's a legend. All right. We digressed, Elon. We did that. I mean, I feel like you could digress the same way I could digress. And I appreciate you for that. All right. Okay. We got to talk about what's happening here. We're doing an ADP battle, ADP average draft position. All right. And I'm going by Yahoo ADPs as well when I was looking at some of these players. So Elon and I are going to be looking at 2 players that are in and around the same average draft position and deciding which player we would take and why. And in terms of scoring that we're going to be using here, Kouple scoring. All right, we got to do it. We got Elon on here, so this is going to be for Kouple scoring, which is very standard across the Kouple for a long time. So it's a points league with a little bit of banger weighting, right?
Yeah, so pretty much. And goals worth more than assists by a bit.
And one thing really interesting about Kouple scoring, no power play points. or no point value for power play points. So that's kind of an interesting piece. It does change things just a little bit. It's not anything major because obviously you got guys that are popping off in the power play. You're going to get those points on the goals and assists, but yeah, you're not getting anything extra for these guys that are crushing on the power play. So actually, even before we move on, how come that was a choice that you guys made there with your scoring? Because I always found that interesting.
Yeah, we get that question a lot. The main justification is kind of like you said, like you're already getting a ton of points from these guys. Like like picking a guy who gets a lot of power play time, that's going to do well for you. Why do they need like an extra bonus now? And like basically, because anything you add, like you have to think of who are we penalizing. So now we're making it even like less appealing to have a non-power play guy. And you got like a Nick Ehlers who could sometimes do really well at even strength and not get power play points. We don't want him to become completely irrelevant while like these power play guys just like make such a huge gap and the whole game is now just fine power play. So when we look, basically, I think for any like points system that you're designing for your league, I think you come up with a setup of points, then you got to get a rankings based on whatever last year's stats or projected stats, and you kind of eyeball it. And he's like, does this look right? Like, do I want this guy above this guy? Do I want there to be this much of a difference between these two players? And I think we just like kind of came up with a system over the years, and we've been like tweaking and doing things. And I think we like now where it's like the difference between players look like what they would be if I was just guessing like where I think the difference between certain players should be. So that's kind of why we made that decision. It just seemed like a needless extra thing that just boosts people who are already super high.
Yeah, no, it's really good reasoning. And just another reason why I like Kouple is everything's really well thought out. And so, yeah, I really appreciate that. So there you go. Enough blowing smoke into the Kouple. It's a beautiful league. And look at this, man. Beautiful head of hair on you, Elon. I got to say that right now. All right. I'm a little jealous. Yeah,
I heard your last episode. You were really complimenting that guy's looks. I was waiting for that. So I really appreciate it. I wanted to know if I was going to get it or not.
Oh, don't even worry about it. Yeah, I got plenty in the tank. All right. I like what I'm looking at here. Again, I'm glad this is going on YouTube. All right. Just lots for people to look at and to listen to. All right, let's move on. Okay. What we're doing here, let's let the battle begin. Are you ready, Elon?
Let's do it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. We're in the first round. We're excited. We got pick number 5, and we're staring down Leon Draisaitl, Uncle Leon, and David Pastrnak. Now, this is going to be an interesting one. It's a contentious topic. I've heard lots of people in our Discord talk about this one. Who are you picking at pick 5? Are you going Draisaitl or Pastrnak in Kouple scoring?
It's a fun question, especially since we just generated our draft order yesterday for the couple drafts coming up, and I'm getting 6. So I'm probably going to get whoever doesn't get taken between these two, assuming it's the 3 M's in the top 3. I'm assuming Kucherov goes 4 in most leagues. Might be wrong. But that might just leave Pastrnak and Draisaitl, and I'll definitely be taking the one that doesn't get picked. I guess I shouldn't say definitely. Maybe like a Makar is worth considering. I don't know. I don't want to. Okay, we got to talk about these two guys. Okay, I think if it's me, I think I'm taking Pastrnak, right? Like, because we like give a lot of weight to goals, and we also give a lot of weight to shots. And Pastrnak is like right among the top of the league. Like, if you're just looking at shots from last season, like the shot leaders overall, it was. Edit point. Okay, it was McKinnon number 1. Number 2, David Pastrnak. 382 shots for Pastrnak. You got to go way down to find Draisaitl. And to be fair, he had 217 shots. And look, it was a down year for Draisaitl. I'm definitely expecting a bounce back. Like if you look at his fantasy points over the last few years with Kouple scoring, he was like top 3 or 4 like a few years in a row. And then last year I don't know what happened. Apparently he had an injury or something. So I definitely not try to be down on Draisaitl here. But I think Pastrnak is just crushing it with the shots. Had 47 goals last year. He had 61 goals the year before. Like there's upside here to be a 50 goal scorer, and I love that floor with the shots on goal, and also the fact that he's like I'm not too worried. I know some people worry about Boston, they're getting old or whatever, but it's like we're done with that, like Bergeron left, I was worried, but then Pastrnak went off and still had 110 points last year. So I kind of feel like why should it be worse? Maybe things will even be better. Now they have Elias Lindholm, maybe he'll help. Maybe he won't even play with Pastrnak, but maybe they'll play on the power play together. So I think that I don't see a reason for him at 28 years old to have any decline. So I think we'll probably just keep rolling with what happened last year.
I love that, and I wish I could disagree with you, but I can't. All right, I'm taking Pasta here as well. And this is an interesting piece because, Draisaitl is falling in drafts. This was the clear, number 2 or 3 for the past few seasons, and now he's falling down the board. In some of the mock drafts I've done, I've seen him go as late as 9. Draisaitl at 9. I mean, it always seems like there's a good reason to not take Draisaitl, but I mean, obviously we know what this man's capable of. But that said, I agree with everything you said. the big thing with Pasta for me is the shot and chance generation. That's obviously something we look at here at Apples and Ginos. That's how we value players. You got to shoot to score and you got to get chances. And that's what Pasta does in spades, right? And like you said, we're sort of done counting the Bruins out. It's a fool's game, right? At this point, this guy's good to go. And a neat piece that Pasta had last year is he had a career high in assists, 63 assists, which is actually not something I saw happening. He became a little bit better of a facilitator. So I'm not sure what that's going to equal this upcoming season. I do have Pasta projected for 106 points, and I have Draisaitl projected for 114. But Pasta comes out on top in terms of Kouple scoring for me because of the shots that you mentioned, right? Like there's a point total for the shots and he cooks. Like he could lead the league in shots next year and that would not be a surprise at all. So the other thing on Draisaitl too, and you mentioned this, is sort of he doesn't shoot, but he's massively efficient, right? And he might be, one of 2 or 3 players in the league where if he shoots over 20%, you don't bat an eye. You're like, okay, that's Draisaitl. He does that, but eventually you would think, and I'm not saying this season, but like a guy that is his production so based off of massive efficiency, like what happens if he gets unlucky? What happens if those goals start going in? Now you got a player that doesn't shoot as much, right? And now he's not scoring as much, right? And that's not something I'm concerned about Draisaitl, but it's just something to think about and something that tips the scale for me for Pastrnak. So I am excited about Pasta. Do you think you're going to take him? You'll just take whoever's left at that point at 6, Elon?
I think so. There's some other considerations, but I don't want to deflate Draisaitl too much here. Like this guy has a high shooting percentage. You look at highlights, he's like taking shots like on the power play from like the goal line and they're going in. Like he knows how to get the puck in the net. I'm not worried about that. And also, I think if you're looking at ceiling and floor, I think what Pastrnak did last year, he's like, that's what we're hoping he gets this year. I'm not expecting Pastrnak to like find another level. But like if you were to tell me right now that like Draisaitl's going to end next season, what do you say? You're projecting 114. I think that's a fine projection. But like if you were to tell me like he ends up with like 130 and win the Art Ross, like I'm not going to be surprised. I'll be like, yeah, he's done that before. So I feel like the upside is like so high with Draisaitl. But I stand by what I said. But I think Draisaitl's the next pick there at 6. As of now, not to tip my hand too much, but to my tier 3 Frölunda competitors, if you have 7th, don't expect Draisaitl to fall to you.
There you go. Yeah, it's weird stuff. Draisaitl getting faded like this because of what you just said. This guy could get 130 in his sleep, and we'd be fine with it, right? The Oilers could go nuclear again. So
also, like if you look at last year, and I know we have like a bunch of players to get to, but like you look at the quarters, like Draisaitl was elite overall, like in 3 of the 4 quarters. Just somehow, like in the second quarter of the season, he had only 17 points in 18 games. Very like pedestrian for a guy like Draisaitl or $14 million man. You take out that like stretch, and he's kind of like back up to where he was in previous seasons. So I don't know what happened. Maybe he was hurt. Maybe he got unlucky. I don't know what happened. But he had a rough 18 games that brought his numbers down when you're looking at the season totals. But I don't know if that's really representative of what to expect next season.
Yeah, well, and also on that too, like they had a coaching change, right? So you got a guy coming in, you got to, if there's any systems change or anything, you got to figure that out and the expectations of the coach. But obviously, I like the situation there in Edmonton. I think they're going to be a wagon this year. It's cup or bust. I love the additions of Skinner and Arvidsson there. Not so much for fantasy, to be honest. Like I think it kind of mutes both those guys who are guys I'm usually excited about, but at even strength, it's going to be great. They're going to be with Draisaitl most likely or McDavid. Damn. I mean, this is not Ty Ratty, folks. This is like Jeff Skinner, who's he's a legit shot monster now playing with like the best player in the world. So I like that. But I don't know, even real quick, what do you think about Skinner and Arvidsson there?
No, I'm with you. Like I was so excited about Connor Brown last year because it was looking like he was going to play on the top line, and like I think that probably Skinner and Arvidsson are better than Connor Brown. Like not just Connor Brown had a couple
for
good
fantasy,
years. But yeah, like these guys are. But like, I think what you're saying makes sense. Like there's just no power play available. Like you've obviously got McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, RNH, and Bouchard, and that's your top power play. So unless there's an injury, that's not happening. So I think we're looking at upside of like 50, 60, like I don't want to get too low, but like I'm not reaching, especially another strategy. And I'm going to give away some of my strategy again for this season that maybe I've changed from previous years. I'm trying to go more for upside, and I'm trying to go more for like people who haven't gotten to where like I think they could get to in their career yet. Like I want to get that breakout season, So I don't want to pick someone like Arvidsson who like has been good, and I'm hoping like, oh, I hope he can do what he did back in 2020, 21 or whatever in his best year. Or like what I'm hoping Jeff Skinner can be like 90% of what he was in his best season, So I just feel like there's probably going to be players picked around those guys that I'd rather take a chance on someone, like I'm looking at, Mason McTavish. Like I'm just like picking a name out of my, like a guy who I
Yep.
think is going to get a good roster spot and also just has that upside to do well. And I'm okay with having a bit of a lower floor because I like streaming. I like trading. Like I'll figure it out. But I want to get those guys. I want to pick someone in like the 10th to like 15th round that like at the end of the year we're like, oh man, that guy could have been like a 3rd round pick. Like that's what I'm going for. And I don't think that's going to happen with Arvidsson or with Jeff Skinner. I think they'll be fine, but they're not going to like blow anyone away.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like for me, the first 5 to 7 rounds, I like to go floor. Like I'm not exactly like, of course I'll go for ceiling plays there, but as I get later on the draft, it's ceiling plays. Like let's look for ceiling,
exactly.
right? And like you said, those guys, they're floor plays, right? And at that point, you can get, players like even Martin Necas is a player that I'm really high on this year that I think has a really high ceiling, but he doesn't really have maybe the floor that those guys have just with their deployment and the way Chuck Knobloch deploys his players there in Edmonton. Anyways, we're digressing, Elon, as we do, and I love it. Okay, we got to move on. We're talking about round 3, and we're looking for a center. We're in the market for a center, and there's a couple of beauties still left on the board at pick 36, Jack Eichel and Sidney Crosby. Who are you taking there?
Yeah, I guess it kind of goes by like what I was just saying, where I kind of got to go for Eichel. Like Crosby's incredible. He's had an incredible career, and I've got him in my Cap Dynasty League, and I'm very afraid about the next contract that he's going to get, where he's going to be making like whatever $10 million into his late, like I don't know, mid 40s. But yeah, like he had a great year last year, no doubt about it. Maybe even one of his like better career years. Let me bring up the numbers here. Yeah, 94 points in 82 games. Okay, so not the peak Crosby. 42 goals though, nothing to sneeze at. But Jack Eichel, like he had a great year himself in the games he played. He missed some time with injury, but around the same point pace, like 68 points in 63 games. But I just feel like if he's fully healthy, I think there's upside for him to like hit 100. Like there was a time when we thought he was there. And also again, like Pastrnak, I love the shots on goal. Eichel's a big shooter. So I know I'm going to get that floor of even if, he goes a little cold, he's still going to give me like maybe 2-3 fantasy points per game just from his shots, taking like 6 shots in a game. And then I guess another reason to be like less into Crosby is I'm quite worried about the players around him. Like I just like Malkin, I don't know what he's got left. I love Erik Karlsson. Obviously, we named our podcast after him. But I don't know. Like I'm banking on like Brian Rust to like be a player that Crosby can dish to and score some goals. Like Rust is okay, but I'd much rather have Mark Stone, like the types of guys that Vegas has. And Vegas has also lost a couple of their big names. They lost Marchessault, but I still think that Eichel has a better supporting cast and he's younger. Like Crosby's not going to be a 90, 100-point guy forever. At some point, like we saw last year, Ovechkin, like he really took a step back. I'm not saying like for sure this will happen to Crosby, but I don't think it's crazy to say that sometime the next like 3 seasons, like Crosby's going to have a year where he like massively like disappoints compared to what people were expecting. And like it could happen next year. Maybe there's a 20% chance, 30% chance that next season is the one. Like age, even the best players, at some point they're gonna like Jaromir Jagr didn't look so good in fantasy for his last couple years in the NHL. So
he's still being drafted though. I mean, by like something silly, like 5% of teams or something. Like, whoa, okay, that's a choice. I really like that. I like the mention of Ovechkin too. I do think they're different players though. Like Crosby,
sure.
Of course they are. Yeah, but Crosby he's adapted his game, whereas I think Ovechkin really hasn't. But that said, like I'm taking Eichel as well, and I love that we're synergistic here, Elon, and it feels right. The big difference for me with Eichel, I think he's on an upward trajectory where Crosby's kind of he's on a downward trajectory at this point, right? So, I've got Eichel projected for 85 points. I've got Crosby projected for 94. But the big difference there is the shots that Eichel brings, like you said, and then his block totals actually, because blocks are 0.5 in Kouple scoring as well. I think that Eichel is bringing more to the table there.
Honestly, if I draft Eichel and he's like blocking a lot of shots, I'm kind of going to be like, how about not? And don't get injured. I'm fine to give up those extra, 1 fantasy points per game in exchange for you not missing 20 games of the season.
So true. I think about that all the time with Austin Matthews and Elias Pettersson. It's like, guys, we got players for that. Can you just step out of the way? Like that's a hard rubber puck coming at you 100 miles an hour. Like just don't step in front of that, please.
Like
but
Jack
yeah.
Eichel could. Oh wait, he's not there. I was going to say Alec Martinez could do the blocking for him, but I think he went somewhere else now.
No, he's done. Yeah, now Eichel's going to get even more. I don't even know what's happening. Now it's bad. But yeah, that's where I'm at with Eichel. I do love the shot and chance generation as well, but it doesn't tell the whole story. Like, yes, he gets more shots and generates more chances than Crosby does, but obviously Crosby is still him. He's still elite. He's amazing. And one thing about Crosby, that Pittsburgh power play was hot garbage last year. There's no question. I don't think it's going to be that again. I think that the Pittsburgh power play is, even if it comes up to a middle of the pack, that's going to be a net positive for guys like Crosby. And I think that's how he gets the 94 points. But yeah, at the end of the day, I don't think we've seen Eichel's ceiling. And I think things are trending upwards. Like, Eichel also has close to 4 minutes on the power play, and he didn't even do very well with it. Like, he only got 22 power play points last year. I think there's some room to grow there. So yeah, I like Eichel a lot this year. I think as a third round pick, like if you get, a winger and a defenseman, in your first 2 picks, and then Eichel staring at you in the third round, like that's a smash for me. This guy.
Honestly, really I think it's wishful thinking. I don't think I'm getting Eichel in the third.
Well, certainly in Kouple, because it's 14 teams. Like, I mean, yeah, if Eichel's there in the third round of Kouple, please. All right. Just give me the trophy. All right. Give me the t-shirt. I'm into that. That seems really good, but
I should have worn that.
Yeah, I would be wearing it all the time. I mean, the thing would be tattered. It would just be like a collar and like a bit of like, strands there.
I feel like, my Kouple winning shirts, which I have a few from over the years, I treat them like, you ever played like Zelda Breath of the Wild?
Oh, yeah.
And, you get those weapons that are like really good, and then you never want to use them because eventually they're just going to get damaged and break. Like, that's how I treat my Kouple shirts. I'm too afraid. I don't want to use them up.
It's like behind glass in like your den or something like that. I love that. That's my goal this year, buddy. I'm gonna get one in my fantasy hockey career. That's a guarantee. I'm putting that out there right now. Hopefully this year. Anyways, let's move on. We're together 2 for 2 of same picks, Elon. I like that. All right,
let's get a hard one.
Okay, I'm trying. Let me see what I can do here. All right, round 6. Now we're looking at, kind of a lower tier of players here, but still guys that can maybe get point per game. And we're at pick 75. We're looking at Matt Boldy or Clayton Keller of the Utah Hockey Club. One of the worst names I've ever heard, but a pretty dang sweet uniform. I actually don't mind the color scheme there anyways.
I like the name also.
You like the name? Oh man, it's
got so like vanilla. A Ted Lasso vibe to it.
I like that. If I'm looking through that lens, I'm like, okay, that's fine. But like, it's like, it reminds me of that picture of Rob Lowe when he's at the football game and he's wearing the hat that says like NFL on it. It's like, just pick something, like I like sports. Like, all right, that's fine.
They need a year to figure it out. They got to see what's the identity of this team. If they play hard, they can be the Utah hard players. Like, they need to see.
Oh, the hard player. Okay, I don't mind that. Giggity. That's fine. Yeah.
All right. This is a hard one, actually. This, I think, I don't know, for you it's easy. For me, I'm looking at these two guys. Yep. By the way, behind the scenes, I already knew who was coming. So when I said give me a hard one, I knew he was going to. So I was just trying to make some good content here. Okay.
Foreshadowing.
They're both left wing, right wing. They both are probably close to like 75, 80 points, I think. They both shoot a decent amount. Like, there's really not. They both like don't have great peripherals, but that's not why you're drafting them anyways. I think I'm gonna lean Boldy, and the reason is because he's playing with Kaprizov, and I think that's just like an elite guy, a first round pick that you can be playing with, and he's like younger also. So I think like when there's a tie, I'm gonna go to the guy whose best years are ahead of him, and maybe Keller's ours too. Like, what's Keller, like 27, 28 right now? Like, he's definitely not an old man, but he's 26 actually, so he's still young. But Boldy's only 23, so I could still see Boldy taking like a big step forward. And I think I like the guys he's playing with better. Not that Keller is sort of like, he's the guy that you're excited for other players to have playing with him. Like you're hoping Kouple and Guenther and everyone, like hopefully they get a spot with Keller. But I think Boldy gets to like play with Kaprizov. It's gonna go great. So I think that's locked in now. Like, it's not like in his rookie year we didn't know if he was going to get top power player or not. I think it's pretty sure. And you might even just have like top line Boldy, Eriksson, Ek, Kaprizov. It's like a solid line with Utah. Like, there's a lot of changes happening. I'm not exactly sure what's going to be the lines. So yeah, I'll do Boldy, but I really think it's close to a coin flip. Yeah, I mean, I'm always trying to pick a couple players that I think are similar, and
I'm taking Boldy too. We're 3 for 3, Elon. What the hell? That's fine. We disagree on everything on this podcast, and that's totally fine. But I've got Boldy for 84 points. I've got Keller for 80. So they're in the vicinity. But one of the things that I really like about Boldy as opposed to Keller is the way that he generates scoring chances. So on the season, yeah, they both had similar seasons. Like Keller had an 80-point pace. Boldy had a 74-point pace last year. But the big difference is Boldy chucks pucks with the best of them. Oh, man. His individual Corsi 4/60 was 20th overall in the league, according to Natural Stat Trick. And he was 10th overall in individual scoring chances for, where Keller was 182nd overall. In individual scoring chances. That's massive, right? And I'm not saying Keller is, I'm not talking bad about Keller. I'm just talking really well about Matt Boldy. This is a guy that generates a ton of chances. And, you said he might play with or should play with Kaprizov. I'm not sure about that, but I don't think I care. Like this, I think, of course, he'll play with Kaprizov this year.
Like on the power play for sure.
On the power play, yes. And I'm sure at even strength, like they're, going to have a cup of coffee there. If they decide to load up that top line, we saw it before and it works beautifully with Eriksson, Ek, and Boldy. But we also saw Boldy play with Eriksson, Ek, and Marcus Johansson, right? And then Marco Rossi and the Zucchini man, Matt Zuccarello, up on the right wing there with Kaprizov. So I think they could still go with both of those lines, and that wouldn't surprise me. Like they're in cap hell and they have to kind of just work with what they've got. So I think sometimes if they load up on the top line, there's not much left in the bottom 9.
Yeah.
So that's the thought there. But I also think the power play in Minnesota is so much better than what we're going to see in Utah this year. And that's not a slag on Utah's. I just think that Minnesota power play underachieved a little bit, but they generated an insane amount of chances and shots. So I think Boldy has legit like 30 power play point potential in him. I know Keller did that last year. I just like the player a lot better. Like you said, he's younger, but they do profile the same, don't they, Elon?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I don't think you can go wrong. I guess this is just totally off my head. This is not based on any data, but a little concern I have with Keller in Utah is, like you say, they have like maybe a bit more forward depth. That concerns me always a little bit, that they might go with 2 power plays that like each get like maybe a more even amount of ice time. Yep. Especially they also now have Sergachev. So they have Sergachev and Dursey. So they could have 1 power play with Sergachev, 1 with Dursey. And then you look at the forwards like Keller, Schmaltz, like Guenther, Cooley, but then you still have like Michelli and Barrett Hayton, and you have, I don't know, Nick Bjugstad, Lawson Krause. Like I feel like they have guys that in the past have played some power play minutes, so maybe they'll spread it around a little bit more. And then also, whenever someone goes to a new team, I'm always like a little concerned. Like, what if like Sergachev is running the top power play, and it's like it takes some time to adjust to a new system. Like he's been playing in Tampa, dishing to Kucherov and Stamkos. That's what he's used to. It doesn't work that way on all the teams. But I feel like Brock Faber, who I assume is going to run the top power play in Minnesota again. Like he's done it. It's all the same guys, right? So I feel like he should be able to like continue what he was doing, or maybe improve now that he's gotten some experience.
Yep, I think that's really strong. That's a strong take. Just a little bit of variance there in Utah, right? But Keller is the top dog. There's no question there to me. But I mean, who's his center? Do they bump Logan Cooley up there, or do they run it back with Barrett Hayton and Nick Schmaltz in his top line, which I think they will. But yeah, there's just, I think things are a bit more solid, especially on the power play in Minnesota. I agree with you there. That's all we do. We just agree with each other, Elon, and that's totally fine. All right. Mm-hmm. This is what we call synergy. All right, let's move on. We got to talk about round 9. Now we're at pick 115. The draft we're in the mushy middle. We're getting to business. And again, we faded centers, and we're looking at a couple centers here. Comparable in ADP. Robert Thomas, I'm not crazy. I'm just a little unwell. Actually, are you a big Matchbox 20 fan, Elon?
Not really, no.
Okay, yeah, they're terrible.
But that was that was great.
Oh, well, okay, but thank you for that. I appreciate that. It's not my best. Maybe offline I'll give you a better impression.
I'm not crazy. I'm just a little something like that. Unwell.
I'm not.
Now I won't be able to talk for the rest of the podcast.
Yeah, that actually I can taste blood a little bit, but that's fine. So Robert Thomas and Nico Hischier, those are the 2 players we're looking at. Who are you picking there at pick 115 now that you've faded centers?
Yeah, like this is again a very big like know your scoring format, because I think that overall in points, Rob Thomas has a much better chance to be like a 85, 90 point guy. But those are mostly going to be with assists, and he like doesn't shoot very much. So it's kind of like, I don't know, we use the term sometimes like empty calorie points. Like it's kind of like a Henrik Sedin situation where he was great for points only leagues, but didn't like fare so well. And like meanwhile, Nico Hischier, I think will get fewer points, but like more shots, more goals. Like I wouldn't be surprised to see Hischier hit 30 goals. So to me, it's like a pretty easy choice. When I put it into my scoring format for Kouple, just looking at last year's fantasy points per game, looking into like projected points for next year, I think it's like clearly Hischier, and it's actually not even like super close. I really like New Jersey also. Like Hischier's going to be on that top power play with all studs. It's like him, Hughes, the other Hughes, even though now he's injured. So get Dougie. Oh no, Luke Hughes is injured. Let's plug in Dougie Hamilton. That's not too bad. Jesper Bratt. You've got like Meyer. Like that. It's all killers, right? And like Hischier like is locked in. He's been doing it forever with those guys, and I still feel like he's only 25. Like feels like he's been in the league forever. And I know I just called Keller an old man for being 26, but you got a young man here in Nico Hischier at 25. Like I still think that he could have some more upside. If the thing in New Jersey also is someone's always injured there. Jack Hughes is injured. Like Hamilton's injured. Like I feel, and obviously that probably will just happen again. Maybe they're just jinxed. But I just want to see like what they could all do if there was like a full healthy team for a whole season. And I think that there could still be another level to what Hischier can do, because I think everyone agrees that there's another level to what Jack Hughes can do. A lot of people are projecting that he's going to hit 100 plus points if he can stay healthy. So a lot of those are going to be power play points, maybe dishes from Nico Hischier. So that's the pick. But I do like Rob Thomas. I think he's going to get like whatever 20, 25 goals, 55, 60 assists. Really good, but not going to help you too much with less than 200 shots in our league.
Yeah, it's a great take. I agree with you, Robert. I'm taking Hischier there, but Robert Thomas, like, he's just an interesting player to me. And the way we evaluate players here, like I said, is shot and chances, shot and chance generation. That's what we look at here for Apples and Ginos. But I wanted to dig in even further on that, and something I've gotten into a lot this offseason. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this or if you look into this, but it's Corey Schneider's all3zones.com. He has a project where he tracks a lot of different things called microstats. Things like zone entries that lead to chances, chance assists, shot assists. He tracks them all manually by watching the games. And, because Robert Thomas is one of those guys where I'm never high on him. I'm just like, yeah, he's going to get a point per game. But like you said, empty calories. It's a really good way to describe Robert Thomas. But then when I dig in on some of the stuff that Robert Thomas does, he's in like the 98th percentile in chance assists. So setting up scoring chances, in shot assists, he's like the 90th percentile. So one thing about these microstats, and I'd love to get your take on it, is like, I feel like it's rewinding back from a goal, like, or just chances, even like what has to happen for a chance to happen or for a goal to happen. And Robert Thomas really shows out in those metrics that lead to chances, lead to shots, and maybe not necessarily to scoring to goals. But is this something you look into at all, Elon? Or are you familiar with those microstats?
Yeah, like Brian looks into that stuff a lot. My co-host on Keeping Karlsson. I'm more of the question asker. This is actually a lot of fun. Blake, I feel like I'm in like a political debate here. I'm not going to even answer your question. I'm just going to answer the question I wanted to answer.
Yeah.
But like, I really like being the guy answering the questions now. It's a lot less prep, that's for sure. But he brings it up, and like again, like I'm not surprised with that. Everyone says that Rob Thomas is great at generating chances. He's one of the best like guys for assists, I think, out there. And I'd like to see him maybe play with some players a little better than, he's got Jordan Kyrou. And after him, we're hoping maybe for a Jake Neighbors breakout, Buchnevich. But like, St. Louis isn't exactly stacked like New Jersey is. So even if Nico Hischier is only at 95% or whatever, and if Thomas is at 98%, probably still going to have more goals coming from those chances he's generated from Hischier, because those guys are better finishers.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, and in terms of, I just thought that was an interesting piece. Like Robert Thomas, that's where his value is. Like there's other guys like this, like Casey Middlestad is another one where it's like, why are we even talking about this guy in fantasy? He doesn't shoot, he doesn't, but he shows out in these other metrics. So it's just an interesting piece. So Robert Thomas is, he's really good at that. That said, all the stuff you said about Nico Hischier tracks for me. Like this is a guy that, he's not as reliant on his line mates for his own offensive production, right, as Robert Thomas might be. And plus, if he does get that power play one, which I really think what Lindy Ruff did in New Jersey last year, just tooting in all our faces, like, let's do 1A, 1B, throw Luke Hughes on the top power play. I don't give a damn. Like, oh God, buddy, what are you doing? So I'm really thinking that, I'm hoping, but I also think that it's going to be a true top power play. And I do think that Nico Hischier is going to be on there. And I think we're going to see career power play numbers. Like this guy's got 19 power play points. That's his career high. I think he's going to be into the 20s, which is really nice. And he should have a nice little bounce back. Like I said, I've got him for 74 points, more shots, more goals than Robert Thomas. So I think we're together on that. Yeah, I mean, I've got my projections plugged into Kouple scoring, and I think that's why we're hitting on all the same players.
Well, I'm not using I purposely didn't bring up the Apples and Ginos projections for this episode. So just so we won't agree on everything, but we are anyways. So that's too bad.
God. All right. Well, that means we must be doing something right, Elon? All right. Let's move on. We got to talk about goalies. It's unfortunate, but we got to do it. Oh, damn. This is terrible. But before we get into this, Elon, what is your general goalie strategy for Kouple? Because we do 0G over here and I do it in Kouple, like to an extreme. Where are you at with goalies there? Because I know you made a change in the goalie scoring as well 2 years ago, just adding more.
We added more points to wins.
That's right.
Yeah, we've been all over with our goal. That's like the trickiest thing, I think, to nail down in a points league. The problem with making goalies too valuable is then it's like for streaming is where the problem comes in, where you make them too valuable. Then any time that you have an open spot on a day, you're looking to like who's the backup goalie that's going to play because they have like such a better chance than any like random skater you'll stream in. So we didn't want to make it like so obvious, but at the same time, you don't want to devalue goalies so much that no one wants them. But to be honest, between you and me, like I wouldn't even mind if we didn't play with goalies. Like
get him the hell out of
too much of the experience, but I think that a lot of people would stop playing in the league. But so we get that's like also like the main complaint we get, like why aren't goalies worth more? Then we have other people being like, why are goalies worth this much? I hate it. As far as my personal strategy, that's also changed a lot over the years. And I think this year I'm gonna be tweaking it again. Like I definitely went through that phase. So we all have that phase. Like you're still in it right now. You're young. You're doing your 0G. It's cool. It's like I don't need to draft a goalie. Then it's kind of like I don't know, investing in your 401k or something. Like when you get older, you realize maybe you should like invest a little bit. You're not going to live forever.
Okay.
But I think like what's happening now in the NHL is there's a lot of tandems. Mm-hmm. And so in a points league like this, where volume is really valuable, like, someone like Linus Ullmark who won the Vezina, like he still wasn't even like necessarily the top goalie in our league that year, just because he only played half the games. He was sharing the net with Swayman. But so nowadays there's a lot of tandems. But there's still a few goalies, but that list is getting smaller and smaller of guys who are going to play a lot. And I feel like those guys are becoming more and more valuable as like there's so few of them that are like your certain starting goalies. Like I think there's like maybe 10, and the list is even smaller now because Thatcher Demko, I don't even know what's happening with him. So take him out of the list. He's not a sure thing anymore. Ilya Sorokin, all these tweets all the time about how he might have some injuries. So now we're really getting down to like 10 guys I think that I'm like confident are going to be number one goalies, play like all the games, not be terrible. So I think like it's might be worth considering. Like I wouldn't like use a high pick. Like I'm not gonna, when we're looking at Jack Eichel in round 3, I'm not gonna be like, well, no, I'll take Connor Hellebuck instead or whatever. Like I'm gonna take my elite skaters. But I think once the elite guys are gone, like once the skaters that I feel like are like these are the sure thing, they're gonna like carry me in a week. Like once those guys are gone, around like the next tier of guys, if there's still one of these like 10 or so goalies that's still out there, I'll take a shot. Like give me Jacob Markstrom, give me Sergei Bobrovsky, Stuart Skinner. I'm not necessarily reaching, like I said, for like those top guys. Like I'll let someone else go for just Jorkin and Hellebuck or whatever. But I'm not going to shy away from getting a top goalie if they fall far enough where there's no like awesome skaters that I just feel like I'd be an idiot to pass on.
I love it. While I'm in my 0G phase, I'd love to be in a league with you there, so I can, just capitalize. While you're picking goalies, I can pick up some beauty players like Matt Boldy. But I think
Matt Boldy might actually still be in the category where I'd take him over the goalie. There you go. Maybe it's after that.
Yeah. No, I think it's really important. It's an important discussion, right? Because nothing is black and white. Like we talk about 0G here all the time, but I wouldn't even just be like, you have to do it. You have to do it every time the same way. Like, no, you take what the draft gives you and, you look at where these goalies are valuable, right? And that's to your point. When did they become valuable? When did they become like level with the playing field? And, when that's the case and you have the ability to maybe lock down a volume starter, that makes sense to me. It's not something I'll do, but that's not wrong to me in any way. Like, it's just kind of how you want to construct your team.
I think like on the flip side, if like all those sure things are gone and now you like, I have a hunch that like, I actually have a hunch this year that Darcy Kemper might become a good value pick. I think LA does that. They take their crappy goalies and they make them look good. They did it with Korpisalo. They did it with Cam Talbot. So maybe they can do it with Darcy Kemper, who I think is, whatever. He had a bad year last year, but like, I'm not like, once like those top guys are gone, I'm not going to reach to take Darcy Kemper, right? Cause I could name probably like 15 other goalies that I can consider like have similar likelihood of being good. Like, I'm not going to like go out, put my neck out too far. So it's like, hopefully it's clear what I'm saying, that like I might go for one of those like really top end guys if there's like one left and the skaters are gone that I really, really value. But after that, then it's just like fade until there's like Well, we did a whole show on our podcast feed called Schmore Goalies Board where we tiered goalies, and the whole idea with tiering, I think it's a really good draft strategy. Where like, let's say once all the top 3 tier goalies are gone, that we have a lot of guys in tier 4, and we have like even more guys in tier 5. So it's like, don't reach to grab the top tier 4 goalie. Like, just wait until like there's one left, or and then like,
grab the guy at the
'cause-
bottom of the tier.
Yeah, because who knows? Like the whole idea with the tier is like we really don't know. And goalies, you never know. They're so random and hard to predict, especially like at that level when it's not even like your sure thing guys. But I will say that I did look at like 2 years ago Schmore Goalies Board, and like the guys that we predicted to be good actually were good, which is rare. Like it doesn't. It seems like some seasons like they really blows up in your face, and you're like, I think that whatever Carey Price is a sure thing, and then he like I remember back in the day there were a few like really big misses right at the top there. I guess Markstrom did that to us one year, but this past year like we were predicting like Hellebuck, Shesterkin, Saros, Ottinger. Like they all actually were really good. So at least maybe we have some reliability in a couple guys.
Yeah, I mean it's such a hard thing. Like even predicting players is hard enough, and then goalies is like, okay, that's why we don't do it. But yeah, definitely love that point there. And so on this point of 0G, let's say we faded goalies. We don't even care. We're saying we're still in our 0G phase, and now we're looking at Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen or Pyotr Kochetkov. And I think these are 2 really good kind of 0G targets to me, players that are going to get, I think, the majority of the starts for their team. So who are you taking out of those 2?
Yeah, like to me, this one's pretty easy. Blake, I wonder if you will disagree. I think it's like clearly UPL. Like in Carolina, they have Frederik Andersen. He was good last year in the games he played. I don't see why. Like I don't think Kochetkov's going in as like a sure starter, right? Like maybe Anderson's, whatever. Like Anderson had like a blood clot thing. It's not like, I don't even think I said that right. Blood clot thing. Like it wasn't like an injury that's like nagging, right? Like I assume that's all taken care of. So he's coming in. Like I feel like he could even play more games than Kochetkov. And then even if you did get a lot of games, Carolina's like frustrating sometimes because they're such a good defensive team that they'll let in like, let up only 20 shots, 22 shots. So if the goalie like, lets in 3, it's all of a sudden they gave you a pretty bad game in terms of your fantasy points. Less than 800 save percentage when, maybe in Buffalo they're going to let up 40 shots in a lot of games. And, if you let in those 3 goals, that's like a sterling game. So there's that. But then also just like, I think that Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen has established himself, at least for now, as the clear starter on that team. They gave him the big contract. Evan Levi maybe one day starts to challenge, but I think this is kind of like a Bobrovsky, Spencer Knight from a couple years ago. Where we were like, I think maybe Spencer Knight's good. But then at the end of the day, it was like, no, he's Bobrovsky. And I'm not saying the UPL is Bobrovsky, but I think the team sees it right now as like UPL is the clear starter. And also Buffalo's a team on the up. So maybe there's a few more wins there than there were last year. Carolina will get you more wins, but I think at the end of the day, UPL probably wins more games than Kochetkov just because of the goalie split that I'm projecting.
Yeah, I think everything you're saying makes sense. I would choose UPL here as well, but it's not a slam dunk to me. I feel like I think Kochetkov does have the lead on getting that 1A spot there in Carolina. I think obviously we've got a contract year for Anderson. He's had injury issues, in the past. Obviously this last one was medical, but how is he with that, right? I think this screams load management to me all over the place with Anderson, right? So I think Kochetkov potentially could get more starts there, more than he's had before. But yeah, like with UPL, like the new contract says a lot to me that they're at least for one more year, they're going to ride this guy. Like he played amazing last year. I was digging in on some of their metrics here. Like at even strength, they had Buffalo, they were 25th overall in expected goals against, but they actually finished 10th overall in the league in goals against at 5-on-5, right? And their goalie, like it's because of UPL, right? He played out of his mind, especially towards the end of the season. So, and then obviously got rewarded with the contract. So I think UPL for one more year makes a lot of sense to me, but if Buffalo doesn't change their defensive environment, like it could get a little sketchy, right? Like UPL had to play out of his mind to get those numbers and have the metrics that he had last year. If that falls off, like it could be a really ugly season. Whereas the goalie environment in Carolina, we know what that's like, right? I mean, the puck gets dumped into the Carolina zone, the defensemen dump it out, and then the forwards dump it in, and then they just go forecheck and play around in zone, right? They don't mess around. It's a nice place to be for a goalie. If you thrive in that system. And I'm not sure that Kochetkov does, but I do think that it's a better defensive environment. So yeah, to me, it's not a slam dunk, but I am taking UPL because I think he'll get more volume, to your point there. And I do think that Buffalo's defensive environment will be a little bit better with Lindy Ruff at the helm here. I think he's going to shore things up. I don't know what Don Granato was doing last year. He was pissing me off. Like, put Tage out there for 20 minutes, buddy, first. Like, let's start there.
I think maybe Tage had some injury or something. He must have had something wrong with him for a while. And I think it did come out. I can go check out Game Day News, or no, GameDayTweets.com, and then check the news section. And we could find the most recent tweets about Tage Thompson. I think a beat writer did say at the end of the season that there was something lingering. So he could be actually a pretty nice sleeper for next year. If he's falling, I don't think Eichel's falling to round 3, but I could see Tage falling to round 3. And I think I'd swing on that. I'd take the chance. I'm not happy how I took him in round 1 last year. I had 14th. Oof. I took him and Ovi at the turn. 2 of the worst draft picks of my life. Actually, and then it was a 3rd round reversal, so I got the first pick in round 3. I took Erik Karlsson coming off his 100-point season. We know how that worked out. So that was a bit of a tough season.
All makes sense, though. Like, that's a nice piece. Like, damn, I picked Robertson as my first. I had 9th overall last year.
Yeah, also,
like, Robertson, great. I'm super excited about this. Floor solid, ceiling sky high. No. 80-point Robertson. What are you doing, buddy?
Okay, let me hit you with an ADP battle. Right, Jason Robertson or Tage Thompson? Who do you like of those two?
I'm taking J-Rob there. I think that there's just the ceiling's a little bit higher. The environment's a little bit better. But I love both those players. I think in a bubble, like, first off, for ADP, I think you have to take Robertson first. He's not going to slide to where Thompson's sliding to in terms of ADP, but
so you're saying, like, strategically, if you like Thompson better, you might get both if you take Robertson.
Yeah, to me, I'm more excited about Tage Thompson because he shows out in the metrics that I like, and he's going to get more goals than Robertson, so I like that as well. But I think Robertson, to me, we've seen what he can do. He got 109 points, and whether or not that's his ceiling, I think it probably is. That's in the wheelhouse. He can get that, right, if things break right. Whereas Tage, we still haven't quite seen it yet, right? And I'm sure it's coming. Like, I projected Tage for something, monstrous. I think like 88 points or something with 40 some odd goals. And that's conservative, right? Just because we haven't seen it. I think that's a player that has league winning potential, 50 goal potential, over 90 points. I like that for Tage, but we just haven't seen it. So I think Robertson is due for a bounce back, and I think I'd go there first, but why not both? All right. Who you taking? Who you taking? Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Like, I think this is like a minority thing. I don't want to say I'm going to bet my house on this, but I kind of have a hunch that I'd rather Tage Thompson between the two. And a little thing I'm nervous about with Jason Robertson, I think it was brought up on your last episode, that like Wyatt Johnston is really starting to emerge as a superstar. And what if like all those shots that we depend on from J-Rob, like he already went down. He was 3.8 shots 2 seasons ago in that big breakout, only 2.8 last year. And what if he's going to start deferring more to Wyatt Johnston? Maybe like those shots aren't coming back. I don't know. In the ice time, like, Jason Robertson went down in ice time last season. Like, I don't know. Is that just like a situation where, take a step back to take a step forward in a year, like learn a bit? I don't know. I feel like Tage Thompson is still considered by the Buffalo management as like the top player on the team. They're going to give him like the prime deployment, though you were just complaining about how he didn't get it last year. So yeah, it's a tough call. I don't know. There's something about Robertson that makes me a little bit concerned, but like the upside is crazy. And, I don't know. Put me in that situation, and I might, need to think about it more. But just on this podcast, that's my spicy take of the night. To say Tage Thompson over Jason Robertson.
They're 2 of my favorite players for fantasy. There's no question. Like, obviously, those are players I'm interested in this year because of how much they pissed us off last year. So those guys are both going to be at value this year because they didn't perform to the level that we expected last year. So I'm in on both those players, no question. One thing that Tage does so much better than J-Rob is he's the one controlling the zone entries. So he's the one bringing the puck in and setting up chances, whereas J-Rob is more of he gets to his spot and starts firing the puck, right? And I like that for fantasy. I like a player that can sort of generate his own offense and is not reliant on someone else to bring the puck in. And that's something that Tage does better than J-Rob. So, I mean, you can make the argument for both. I love both players, and I think there's a neat upside case for Tage Thompson, but I think we'll be able to get both. I'm excited. I've done so many mock drafts in Yahoo. I mean, which is not a great indicator of what your team is going to look like. But I end up like with something ridiculous. Like I got Jack Hughes, I got J-Rob, I got Tage Thompson, I got Rasmus Dahlin. It's like, how the hell did this just happen? I mean, it's, that's not what's going to happen in your league. But yeah, that's an interesting conversation. All right, so that's what I'm hearing. Elon's taking Tage, everybody, over J-Rob. Yeah, that's
maybe.
That's not maybe.
I think so.
That's not spicy at all. All right. Anyways, we're together on the goalie. We're taking UPL all day. 6K. There's a lot of K's in that man's name. You must appreciate that.
It's a fun name.
Yeah.
My co-host often says Luokkanen. I think it's just like, it looks like that's what it should be, but it's just a boring old Luukkonen. Okay, Luokkanen is kind of fun to say.
I like that. How do you say Luostarnen's name?
Luosterainen? I think it's Luosterainen.
Luosterainen. Okay, well, I'll edit that out.
This will be a fun game, actually.
I've been meaning to do this for a long time, like
Jeopardy,
an all name team, like a podcast, but just like the craziest names that I can't pronounce properly.
What I want is a show where like it's like a game show and it's me versus you, and someone holds up a name to the screen, and then we each do our best of saying, what we think it is. Maybe like we don't listen to the other person, and then we get scored by the people who are like from the country that person's from. Who did it perfectly. I remember I once met a few Swedish patrons of Keeping Karlsson, and they came to Toronto to visit, and they were telling me that I wasn't saying Nylander right because it was like Nylander. And so I started saying on the podcast, I was like William Nylander, and like getting that good dip there on the Lun. And
that's the proper way.
And then we got some patrons being like, "You're not saying it right." It was like, the guys told me that's how you're supposed to say it.
I like, you know what? I'm going to start that too. Nylander. All right. I'm going to, that's
if
just
you say Nylander, that's like, you're basic.
That's
you're
very Canadian.
Nylander.
Okay. I'm with you. Nylander. I'm going to implement that. All right. That's my tribute to you and the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Big Willie Styles, Willie Nylander. We're doing that. All right. I feel good about that. Let's move on. Now we're talking sleepers, Elon. This is the last one. We got to get the biz on this. We're taking swings here at some young up and coming players, and we got a couple of beauties here at 180. We're looking at Adam Fantilli of the Columbus Blue Jackets or Dylan Guenther of the Utah Hockey Club. Who are you taking and why?
Yeah, I guess this isn't like necessarily my area of expertise. Like I haven't watched a lot of non-NHL games to like whatever college games Fantilli was playing where he impressed so high. I know like he's a super high-end prospect. Mm-hmm. I think like for a dynasty league, I'm taking Fantilli. Like if I'm like looking 2-3 years down the road, but right now like Columbus is not a team I want to be depending on for next season. I know this is like a sleeper pick, but I think Dylan Guenther, we talked about how Arizona's interesting, or not Arizona, sorry, Utah. They're like looking interesting. They've got, like there may be a lot of cooks there, but I think Dylan Guenther, like he had a really impressive, he only played 45 games last year, but 35 points, that's a 64-point pace as a 20-year-old. Now he's 21. Maybe he has more upside. He's a super, high pedigree guy. He was picked 9th overall a few years back. I know Fantilli was picked, whatever it was, 3rd overall, but he's younger. And also I just worry about Columbus, and maybe you could look into your advanced stats here, but I feel like Columbus could just get like caved in. Like maybe Fantilli is good, but I don't know if he's not going to be playing with like a superstar guy. And like obviously like such a tragedy that he's not going to be playing with like one potential like huge superstar in Gaudreau. So it's like I just worry that Columbus is going to not be a place where anyone can excel, especially like a rookie that's still kind of new to the league because Fantilli missed all that time with injury last year. And I think Guenther could be primed for a breakout. Like also I love the 2.7 shots per game. For Guenther last year. Like that's the kind of thing I like to see. I think you've gotten it from this podcast. I'm a shots guy. I like my shots. I don't like it when I'm out with friends, by the way, and we get whiskey and then they're like, let's do shots. Because it's like, I like whiskey. I want to sip. And they're like calling me like I'm being like whatever, wimpy or something. It's not that I'm like too wimpy to take a shot. It's just I like the taste of whiskey. Why can't I just sip it? Give me a minute.
Yeah, dude, this shot costs $15. Why would I shoot that down my throat? No. All right.
Yeah, give it to me in a glass, not in a shot glass, like a normal nice whiskey glass. But I'll take Dylan Guenther.
I do like whiskey actually, but I mean, no, like is not the right word, but I like trying it. That's something I really enjoy doing. I had a friend come over with a pretty expensive bottle, and it's always so funny to me that they explain the flavor profile, and he's like, yeah, this is hints of tobacco and cedar. I'm like, why would you put tobacco and cedar into your mouth? I don't understand, but I'm like, yo, that is, and smoke.
Probably still tasted good. Yeah. That's really at the end of the day. It's like, it's smoke. Just say it's smoky, but I like those smoky scotches. Especially.
Yeah. I mean,
where are you recording from? I don't even know. Where are you?
I'm in Vancouver, Vancouver Island, actually.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. I was going to say you could come over, but I guess it's a bit of a trek. Well, I'm over in Toronto.
Can I still? I mean,
you're invited.
I'm getting a plane ticket. I saw a PlayStation 5 controller on your
Oh
table
yeah, I've
there.
been playing some Horizon Forbidden West. Beautiful
Okay,
game.
buddy. I wish I could play some games. Right now, I'm only playing games with my son, so that's fine. But yeah, we got a Switch as well, and there's a ton of fun games. Like we've been getting back into like Mega Man. I used to play like I'm born in the
Okay.
'80s, so I played a lot of Nintendo and Mega Man in general. And you can buy all the games. There's like 11 of them. And so I bought them all, and my son and I are just ripping through Mega Man games. I'm reliving my childhood with the amazing music. So
Yeah, that sounds really fun. How old is he? I guess
he's,
like he must be like
he's
7 or
5.
8.
No,
Oh,
he's 5.
5. That's great. That's great.
Yeah, I mean,
That you can
you
do it
know,
already. I mean, I remember. I think I had a Game Boy when I was 5 playing Super Mario Land. So I
oh
guess
yeah.
they can do it.
I mean, I had an Atari, so I was born in 1980. All right, I'm a
Oh,
44-year-old man.
oh, looking good.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I work out occasionally.
You do? I don't.
No, I don't. Actually, I've had a ton of plastic surgery, so that's yeah, that's where I'm at with that. That's not true, but yeah. Anyways, I had an Atari, I had a Nintendo, and it was really interesting. Like I played those games, but my parents, it was just like go downstairs, and I was by myself or my brother, and we would play. But I like to play with my son because I love video games, and we have the best time. It's like a time to connect. I don't know.
I love it.
yeah.
My daughter's almost 2. I've kind of had this idea in my head. If there's any like parents out there with older kids, let me know what you think about this. I was thinking I want to introduce her to games like the same ones that I did. You know, like she doesn't know what the newest games are like. Like start with the Game Boy and an original Nintendo. Let's play through Mario. Like you're saying, play through Mega Man, and then like build up. Like because as soon as she sees Horizon Forbidden West, well, you're not gonna want to play Mario.
Yeah,
after,
yeah,
right?
exactly. You're not going back. Yeah, that's so funny, man. I do the same thing. Like we've just been playing old Nintendo games, and he doesn't give a damn. He's loving it. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah,
One day you're gonna really blow his mind.
I know. Well, we play on the PS5. We play Astro's Playroom, which is pretty damn fun. But yeah, now he's seen that, and yeah, that's all he wants to do now.
You blew it.
I did. I ruined it. I blew it. That's fine. Yeah, but that game's really fun too. So I'll just play that. Anywho, we digressed again, Elon. We do that. You're taking Guenther, and I'm taking Guenther. Of course, I've never done it.
We didn't disagree. The only thing we disagreed on was mine that I threw out at you with Thompson and J-Rod.
Next time I'll have you do the show notes because damn, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I thought, yeah, there might be some interesting pieces here, but we're simpatico on all these players. I love Fantilli. I like what you said too. For Dynasty, I'm taking Fantilli 100% of the time over Guenther. But for a redraft coming up here, this guy is good to go. He's locked in the top 6, power play 1. He's already shown to be an amazing shooter and chance generator. Plus, I mean, whether he's with, on the top line there with Clayton Keller or if he's with Logan Cooley on the second line, like that's a nice spot to be. He's obviously has some chemistry. He's been able to put up some production there. So I really like that. I do like Fantilli as a sleeper though. The other thing here, Fantilli's a center only, whereas Dylan Guenther's a right wing. So I think picking up a center only at this point in the draft might not be something that you're able to do, like unless you've kind of given yourself some leeway with your team there and the positions. So I think Guenther, you'll probably get him into your lineup a little bit easier. And yeah, like you said about Columbus, it's just, well, I mean, man, that team has gone through just unbelievable stuff over the last few years here. And I just don't think it's going to be a good place for fantasy this year, even if they galvanize. And obviously they have something to play for this year. And a new coach in Dean Evison, which I think is going to be a net positive. Pascal Vincent, what the hell? Him and Don Granato need to go, I don't know, just find another sport. Let's go, just try something else, or go to like a coaching class. I don't know what's happening there, but I do like Dean Evison. He's going to bring some consistency in there, some accountability. There's lots of players I still like on Columbus, but yeah, I think they could be in tough. I got Fantilli for 61. I've got Guenther for 60 points. But again, with the shots going to Dylan Guenther. And, I think I should probably adjust my Fantilli projection at this point. I haven't gone into Columbus yet and sort of figured things out, post what happened here. So anyways, long story short, Dylan Guenther for the win. I think that's going to be a really nice play for you. And pick 180. Damn, that's a nice spot to be.
Mm-hmm.
But buddy, that's it. That's the battle. It really wasn't much of a battle. Like we were more like allies. We were more like teammates in that one. So I don't know. We just smashed invisible opponent. I don't know. But yeah, I think we're on the same page, man. I'm glad we're not in the same league together because we'd be sniping each other's picks all day.
I think it's still going to happen in your league.
That's
the problem with Kouple. Everyone's using. You've even released your projections, so if you're going off your own projections, people are going to know where you're going.
Do you have this problem too? Like, just plight of the podcaster, the fantasy hockey podcaster. First off, no one wants to trade with you. Like, I mean, I get trades done, but I never feel good about it. Like, you can't like extract a bunch of value, like because everyone listens to all your opinions all the time, don't they?
Yeah, I feel like the tricky thing is like when someone is making a proposal to you, and like you think you might like have something that you like. I don't want to act like too quick. It's like,
Mhm.
I guess when you're dating and someone texts you, you don't want to text back too quickly and sound desperate. Like that's kind of
Yeah.
how I feel where, someone posts like, oh, I've got this guy on the block. I don't want to message right away. I'm like, oh, I'm interested. I'll give you this guy. It's like,
Yeah.
Wait a day and then
Some
be like, oh, so
gamesmanship. Yeah.
did you hear any bites on that guy? If not, maybe I could take him off your hands. But of course, by then it might be over. Though we do have the counteroffer rule, so I try to consider using that. Where maybe if a trade happens, then I could come and sneak in. Though obviously they don't have much negotiating power since they've already accepted someone really good.
I know, buddy. It's all good. It's a labor of love for me, and I can tell that it is for you too, Elon. Thanks so much for being here, my man. I really appreciate that. This is long overdue because I just really appreciate what you and Brian do over there at Keeping Karlsson. It's just an amazing fantasy hockey resource. Groundbreaking stuff for the fantasy hockey community, and you guys do it every year. That's another thing I love about Keeping Karlsson and the Kouple is you guys are always bringing something new to the table. Like these allied chats, that was an amazing piece that you guys added last year in your Discord. And I don't know, I just want to give you the floor. Just plug anything you want, your socials and whatnot, and kind of what we can expect from you this season.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we'd really appreciate if people would subscribe, listen to the podcast. You don't have to just pick one podcast. You can listen to a couple fantasy hockey podcasts. So yeah, like give us a download, check us out. I think right now we've been in off-season mode. We've dropped a lot of really fun off-season podcasts. But I think my meat and potatoes, like the thing I'm best at is like regular season, coming up with what's the content going to be for the show every week and trying to figure out like what are the players that, made the most impact that we're going to talk about and dive into. And I almost feel like whether you agree or disagree with our take, I think a lot of it is just here's who's noteworthy right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like we can all make our decisions about whether they'll keep up the hot streak or if the cold streak is like unsustainable or whatever. But I think we have a lot of fun just like trying to pick through what are the main guys that you need to have on your radar in fantasy. So I really think it does give you a leg up to like just be in those conversations. And then we have a really fun patron community. So if you wanted to become a patron of Keeping Karlsson, we try to give as many perks as we can. We've never raised we don't have like a whole bunch of different tiers of giving different things. It's like $5 a month. It's always been that. There's been a lot of inflation. For me, I'm not getting as much for those $5 a month as I used to, but it's okay. We're keeping it the same, and we give you everything we have. So you get to play in the Kouple, join our community. We have a bonus patron cast every month. But anyways, whatever. Why am I selling here? Just check out the podcast if you like it. We'll go. I'll pitch you on stuff there on that one. So yeah, that's all I want.
Thank you so much, buddy. It's worth every penny. I've been a patron for 3 years, and I'm gonna keep going with that because, like I said, Kouple's probably my favorite league. You're playing against the best fantasy managers worldwide, and I love that. That's a really key piece too that isn't really available anywhere else, is it?
Yeah, I mean, we try our best to like keep it to be competitive. We're always building like different ways because as there's more leagues, it's hard to have your eye on everything. So we've got some bots. We've got roster bot in there. Which I don't know how people feel about AI taking over their lives, but if you don't set your lineup for like a couple days in a row, because it's really like that's the minimum we ask of you. We're not saying you have to be like on the waiver wire plucking the best players all the time, but if you're sitting there on a day when you have like a guy who's playing on your bench when there was an open spot, that just means you're not paying attention. We don't want to have leagues like that. There's a guy in your IR that's been healthy forever, or a guy on your roster that's been injured forever and you haven't moved into IR yet. So we've got our roster bot looking at every league and notifying us if there's someone that's inactive, and then we'll reach out to them, try our best to get in touch. We're not just going to take away your team if you've been inactive, but we'll reach out, be like, do you still want to play, or did you lose interest? You know how some people are. They join a league, they're all excited. They get through their draft, they're a little less excited. Then they get through a couple of weeks of the season where they lost, and all of a sudden, I'm not so into this league anymore. Which I think, come on, it's a fun challenge. If your team is bad, that's a really great opportunity to really test your mettle and have some fun. I don't know. So that's me. I mean, it doesn't happen too often that I'm like that bad, though I did come 13th in Tier 1 the last time I was there. I blame it on the kid. My baby was born that year. But
that sounds absolutely reasonable. Yeah.
So yeah.
That's the thing too. You can always get it back. I've had some really bad starts. Both my seasons at Kouple, and I've been able to get close to playoffs again. It's so fun. I don't know. It's great stuff. You got to check these guys out. Check out the podcast. I'll put that link in the description, and check them out on Patreon as well. Elon, thank you for your service. Really appreciate you, my man.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Great talking to you, Blake.
Yeah. Okay. And stick with us here at A&G. We got lots more content on the way. We're popping off right now. We got shows every day. Nate and I went through the schedule and we're like, is this all right? Like we got shows every day. But we're having a nice time.
You're crazy.
So, I don't know. Yeah, obviously we like this stuff a little too much. So anyways, and you get the benefit, listeners. So there you go. Anyways, thanks so much for listening, everybody. Really appreciate you. Celebrate your day. Bye for now.
Bye.